there is this conversation between Dennis Prager and this Catholic guy. He has a YouTube channel called Pints with Aquinas. And they start getting into this debate over pornography and whether or not pornography is a sin or whether or not it's evil or destructive, etc., etc. And a lot of people have been talking about this debate, and the people who've been talking about this debate are Christians. And they will say, well, what Prager says here is disturbing, etc., because Prager is supporting pornography, or he is playing down the dangers of pornography. But really what hasn't been talked a lot about specifically, really I haven't heard anyone bring this up, not to my knowledge, is the fact that Dennis Prager in this argument refused to call animated child pornography evil. And this is what it's very disturbing, but I'm not surprised, because I've talked about Dennis Prager before, and years ago I showed people this excerpt from an interview that Dennis Prager did with David Rubin, and Dennis Prager said in this interview that the Bible says, men, you are as happy with boys as you are with girls.
The Bible said, men, you are as happy with boys. I don't mean 8-year-olds, 15-year-olds.
Yeah.
Just as a grown man is happy with a 15-year-old girl. But in that sense, homosexuals and heterosexuals are identical.
A lot of people got mad at me about that, but this debate further sheds light on the depraved mind of Dennis Prager. So let's listen to this. Let's listen to this, everyone.
But there's a very interesting Hebrew phrase. I'm translating from the Hebrew, so it'll be a bit awkward. In the place that a penitent stands, the most righteous person doesn't stand. And I extrapolate from that if you have bad thoughts and don't act on them, you're on a higher moral plane than the guy who never has a bad thought. I don't get any credit for not molesting children.
So he brings up child molestation, and he says that the person, and this is so sick, deranged, disturbing, evil, twisted. This is very, very twisted thinking coming out of Dennis Prager. He says that the guy who wants to molest kids but doesn't act on those desires is on a higher plane than the person who doesn't have these evil desires. You know how sick that is? It's like, yeah, the person who wants to molest kids but doesn't molest kids is on a higher plane of morality, moral thinking, than the person who doesn't want to molest kids. It's like, it's so sick and twisted. It's just sick. Let's hear some more of this.
I'm as interested in children sexually as I am in bananas or peach trees. Okay, so I get no credit for not molesting a child, but the sick dude who does want to and doesn't, he gets a lot of credit.
He gets a lot of credit. So the sick, evil, twisted person who wants to molest children but doesn't act on it, he gets a lot of credit in the book of Prager. And that person is on a higher plane, whatever that means, than the person who doesn't want to molest kids. It's like, this guy wanted to be a serial killer and to sodomize dead bodies and cannibalize those bodies, but he never acted on it, so he's on a higher plane than you are. Like, oh my God, dude. So it's just demonic. Absolutely demonic. Let's hear some more.
So, speaking of pedophilia, suppose a man says, I view animated child porn.
So the Catholic guy, and I have to give him credit for this, he confronts Prager with this argument, and he specifically mentions animated child porn. Not child pornography that has real images of children, but animated child pornography. It's also very, very evil, very, very sick. But he brings this up with Prager because Prager likes to make this argument that as long as someone isn't really harmed, I'm not going to call it evil. So he says, well, what about animated child pornography, right? Child pornography is very sick, very demented, very deranged, demonic, the whole thing. Very, very evil. And he brings up animated child porn. So he asked Prager, what do you think about animated child porn, right? Technically, a child is not being hurt, but it's still evil. Are you going to call it evil? And Prager refuses to call it evil, even though it is evil. In Japan, animated child pornography is a thing. It's something that they do in Japan. And if you were to meet someone who was a pedophile and they were watching child pornography, you would say, you would gasp. You would be absolutely disturbed. And what if the person tells you, oh, actually, no child is being hurt because it's animated, so don't worry about it. Are you still going to be friends with that person? Are you still going to be in that person's house? No, you're going to run away because the person is obviously dark. Let's hear some more of this.
So there's no real victim in that sense
Right.
of child pornography, which we both agree is horrendous. And by viewing animated child porn, it prevents me from acting out sexually on a child. Now, I deny that. I think that pornography inflames us to then want to act those fantasies out, and I think there's good studies that back that up. But surely you wouldn't say to the man who views animated child pornography, that's not bad so long as you don't act it out. Wouldn't you want to help this poor sick dude?
Yes, I would, but I'm thrilled that he's not acting it out. I mean,
Agreed.
Okay,
Of course.
Well, that's big.
Yeah.
We're both
I'm thrilled. That's big. No, the person is still evil.
thrilled that he might have a poor substitute, but it is a substitute if that were the case. No child is being used.
Yeah.
It's all animated.
Yeah.
As long as it's animated, it's okay. That person is still evil.
And he
But
is,
would you use the word evil of animated child?
Here's where things get very, very telling. The Catholic guy asks him, would you call this stuff evil?
Pornography, because
no,
I
I can't.
certainly
I
would.
can't- no, I would use evil only with behavior.
He refuses to call it evil, even though it obviously is evil. It's like if somebody was watching an animated series and people were, dead bodies were being sodomized and cannibalized, and you met a guy who thought that this was a great anime and he really enjoyed watching it and he thinks that it's great and blah, blah, blah. Would you be like, well, you know what, the person's still cool in my book because, hey, it's animated? No, you would know that this person is a sick bastard. It's very obvious.
That's where we might differ, forgetting the sex issue. You can't be evil. You didn't do evil if you thought evil.
You don't do evil if you thought evil. If someone has desires to cannibalize people and drink their blood and sodomize their bodies, and he has these desires and he fantasizes about them, this person is evil. We're not talking about some guy who checks out a woman and really admires her and is attracted to her. That's a normal desire. But when you have someone who is desiring to do very sick and evil and twisted things, that person is evil. All evil actions, be they genocides, be they mass murders, all evil actions proceed from evil desires. All evil things that have been done, all of the evil that has transpired in the world, always has been conceived first as thoughts. All genocides, all atrocities, all crimes are first conceived as thoughts. They all begin, they all start in the minds of deranged and depraved people. But according to Mr. Prager, if you're not acting out on it, well, it's not evil.
But I'm thrilled that he's not acting it out. I mean,
Agreed.
Okay.
Of course.
Well, that's big.
Yeah.
We're both thrilled that he might have a poor substitute, but it is a substitute if that were the case. No child is being used.
Yeah.
It's all animated.
Yeah.
and he.
But would you use the word evil of animated child pornography? Because
No,
I certainly would.
can't, no, I would use evil only with behavior. That's where we might differ, forgetting the sex issue. You can't be evil. You didn't do evil if you thought evil.
But the person is doing evil. When you're watching animated child porn, that unto itself is an evil action.
If I'm masturbating to animated pictures of pornography, I'm not doing something evil.
That's correct.
Yeah, I think that's just.
So if someone is masturbating to images of animated child pornography, that person is evil. Just like the person who fantasizes about murdering people and sodomizing their bodies and cannibalizing them, doing Jeffrey Dahmer type stuff, that person is also evil. When you have people that are desiring to molest children and they have these desires, those people are plainly evil. It really is that simple. But according to Prager, nope, it's not evil as long as they're not hurting someone. It's still evil. It's still depraved. It's still deranged. Now let's go back to the video that I exposed back in 2017. People got upset at me for bringing this video up and saying that Prager defends pedophilia. And people were saying that I was falsely interpreting what he was saying, that I was wrongly interpreting what he was saying, that I got it all wrong, that I was taking him out of context. But let's play this clip, because what Prager said in his debate with Pints with Aquinas further exposes him and sheds more light on what he said in his conversation with David Rubin back in 2017. So let's hear this.
By the way, I actually believe bisexual is the norm.
So Dennis Prager believes that bisexuality is the norm. He believes that bisexuality is normal, which means that he believes that homosexuality is normal, because I don't give a damn what anyone says. Bisexuality is homosexuality. If you have a guy who likes men, who's attracted to men, he's a homosexual. I don't care if he says he's also attracted to women. He is a homosexual. He's a citizen of the Republic of Sodom. It really is that simple.
The Bible said, men, you are as happy with boys. I don't mean 8-year-olds, 15-year-olds.
Yeah.
Just as a grown man is happy with a 15-year-old girl.
Let's hear that again.
Yeah.
The Bible said, men, you are as happy with boys. I don't mean 8-year-olds, 15-year-olds.
Yeah.
Just as a grown man is happy with a 15-year-old girl. But in that sense, homosexuals and heterosexuals are identical.
So, according to Prager, the Bible said that men, you are as happy with boys as you are with girls. And in this sense, and this is what he says in this interview, in this sense, homosexuals and heterosexuals are the same. I don't really have to, I don't feel the need to explain why this is depraved and deranged. And people are going to argue and say, well, no, he was simply saying this in the context of explaining the biblical view on traditional marriage, etc., etc. And it's like, no. There's nowhere does the Bible say what he is saying, that you're as happy with boys as you are with girls. It's like, it's very sick. And there is no context where something like this is appropriately said. Like, there is no context. When you start saying the Bible says that you're just as happy with boys, like, there is no context where this can be said and it's good. It's very, very sick to mention the Bible with pedophilia, to associate the Bible with pedophilia, to say that the Bible says that you are as happy with boys as you are with girls. Like, you just don't say something like that. And if someone is saying something like this, then they have a depraved mind. And this debate that Prager had recently with this Catholic guy further exposes him. Dennis Prager is a very depraved person, very twisted. He has been beloved by American conservatives for decades. But when you watch his interviews, you will begin to spot certain things like this, just as you can see with his interview with Rubin and his recent debate with this Catholic guy, Pints with Aquinas. Every few years, it seems, Prager further exposes himself as the sick man that he is. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.